Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, hey, I've got my mom's eyes, or that's totally my dad's smile? Well, that's the magic of inheritance. It's how traits get passed down from parents to their kids. Today, we're going to dive into how this biological lottery really works, and it all kicks off with a really fun question.
And that brings us to this really cool puzzle. Picture this. You've got two cats, both with sleek, short hair. They have a litter of kittens, and then, wait a second, one of them is this super fluffy, long-haired little puffball. How on earth does that happen? Well, we are about to find out. So, to get to the bottom of this whole kitten thing, we first need to get familiar with the basic language of genetics. You can think of it like the instruction manual for life. And trust me, once you learn a few key words, it all starts to click.
Okay, first things first, the gene. A gene is basically just a tiny little section of your DNA. It's like a single instruction in this giant blueprint. So you've got a gene for hair length, a gene for eye color, you name it. They're the absolute fundamental building blocks of what makes you, you.
Now here's where it gets interesting. Genes can come in different flavors, right? We call these different versions alleles. So for that hair length gene in our cats, there's a short hair version and a long hair version. And to keep track of them, we just use letters, which makes everything way easier.
So since we get one allele from each parent, we end up with a pair for every single gene. This specific combination of letters, like HH, HH, or HH, that is what we call the genotype. It's the secret genetic code hiding inside. And that leads us right to the phenotype. Look, if the genotype is the code that's written in the software, the phenotype is what you actually see on the screen. It's the physical thing you can observe, like a cat having, you guessed it, short hair. So here's the absolute key to this whole thing. The genotype is the invisible code the letters an organism inherits. The phenotype is what you actually see. A cat with the genotype HH, for example, will still have short hair. Getting this difference is how we're going to solve our entire puzzle.
All right, so we've got the lingo down, but now we need to know the rules of the game. Turns out, not all alleles play fair. Some are what we call dominant, and others are recessive. Let's see exactly what that means.
In cats, the allele for short hair, let's call it a big H, is dominant. What that means is, if a cat has even one copy of this allele, it's going to have short hair. It's the boss. But the allele for long hair, little h, is recessive. It's kind of shy. It only gets to show itself if there are two copies of it and no dominant allele to shout over it. And this leads us to a couple more words you gotta know. If an organism has two identical alleles, like big H, or little h, that's called homozygous. But if the alleles are different, like one big H and one little h, that's heterozygous. And here's the kicker. A heterozygous cat, one with HH, will still have short hair, because that dominant big H always calls the shots. Okay, so we've got our players and we've got the rules. So how do we actually predict what's going to happen? Well, scientists use this super simple but totally brilliant tool called the Punnett square to figure out the odds, and it's about to blow this whole mystery wide open. And you won't believe how easy it is to make one. First, you just draw a simple four-square grid. Then, we take the alleles from one parent, in our case H and H, and put them across the top. We do the same for the other parent down the side, again H and H. Now for the fun part. You just fill in the boxes by combining the letters.
And ta-da! Here it is, our completed Punnett square. We've just mapped out every possible genetic combo for these kittens. So in the top left, we get HH. Top right and bottom left, we get HH. And then look down there in that bottom right corner. We get HH.
So what does this tell us? Well, any box that has that dominant big H in it is going to result in a short-haired cat. That's 3 out of the 4 boxes, right? So there's a 75% chance of a short-haired kitten, which leaves just that one box, the HH combo, giving us a 25% chance of a long-haired kitten. And there it is, mystery solved. The parent cats both have short hair, but they're heterozygotes. They're secretly carriers of that recessive long hair allele. Their genotype is capital H, small h. So when they pass on their genes, there's a 1 in 4 chance that a kitten gets a recessive H from both of them, resulting in that small h genotype and a beautiful, fluffy, long-haired phenotype.
Okay, so this whole thing might feel like just a fun little cat puzzle, right? But these exact same rules, these principles of inheritance, they have huge, profound implications for human health.
Understanding this whole dominant and recessive thing is absolutely crucial for predicting and managing genetic conditions.
For example, let's take cystic fibrosis. It's a very serious condition, and it's inherited in the exact same way, with a recessive allele. And just like our short-haired cats, a person can be heterozygous, carrying one copy of that recessive allele without having the condition at all. These people are called carriers.
So if two parents who are both carriers have a child, we can pull out our trusty Punnett square again to predict the risk. It works the exact same way. Here, big C is the dominant, healthy allele, and little c is the recessive allele for cystic fibrosis. And you're probably starting to see a very familiar pattern emerging here.
And once again, it all comes down to that bottom right box. What this means is that for two carrier parents, there's a 1 in 4 chance, a 25% risk of having a child with cystic fibrosis. This kind of predictive power is the absolute cornerstone of modern genetic counseling.
You know, when you really step back and think about it, it's pretty amazing. Heredity, it's just the study of how this incredible biological lottery works. It's the random shuffle and combination of genes from our parents that shapes all the beautiful diversity of life on this planet, from a cat's fur to our own health.
It's just wild to think that a simple 4-box grid can give us such powerful insight into the code of life itself. It really makes you wonder, if we can solve this, what other massive biological mysteries are we on the verge of cracking wide open?